How we doing? Hello, config. Shout Figma Slides. Anyways, I'm Noah, and today, as you could tell, I'm gonna tell you about ice cream. So imagine this. You're at an ice cream store. You've got a lot of different options in front of you. You're not sure which one you want to choose. In this economy, a scoop is $5, and that's all you've got. How do you know how to go from all these different options and flavors to one specific flavor that you spend money on? Fortunately, the inventor of ice cream also invented samples, and I personally love samples. Samples are great. You could just try stuff for free. It's okay if it tastes good. It's okay if it tastes bad. You're not actually committing to anything. It's fine if you have the salt and straw mealworm and cricket ice cream. Like, sure, doesn't really taste that good, but just a sample is no big deal. But you might strike gold. You might go to Lush Gelato in North Beach in San Francisco, and you might sample the fresh mint gelato. And when I did sample it, I fell in love, and I get that every time I go. So I could be here and tell you about how to ask for a bunch of samples of ice cream because you're cheap and indecisive, but I'm actually going to be telling you a little bit about prototypes, and I promise the ice cream makes sense. Also, I'm a software engineer. Why am I here at a design conference? Well, that's a good question. I've worked on a lot of cool projects such as FigJam, Figma Slides. I've been through a lot of these through their starts. I've been at Figma for 4 years, and I've seen FigJam and Figma Slides really grow. I've also been through a lot of other fun stuff, such as FigPals. You might have heard of them. It was our April fun project last year, and I'm going to be talking a lot more about this. And I've also worked on a lot of side projects, like a transit quiz for San Francisco about modes of transit, which was pretty fun. And last year, we actually did another April fun project, FigCade. We put a bunch of interactive games in the editor because Figma just let us do that, I guess. But let me tell you, this project did not start like this. It started like this. A bunch of really scrappy prototypes that we spent very little time on just so designers and other people could sample what it was like. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about prototyping and how we use prototyping with a bunch of different projects. The first one is the early days of Figma Slides. So what's really cool is that in the early days of Figma Slides, which I'm using Figma Slides to present this right now, prototypes are really useful for providing direction. And yeah, here we are. We got Figma Slides. You got the familiar Figma editor inside of a slide editor. Here I am using it. It's pretty sweet. But also, one of my favorite features of Figma Slides is that button up there. If you click it, you get to harness the entire Figma infinite canvas, and you can move all your slides around. You can put notes wherever you want. It's pretty awesome. But it did not look that way at first. Hopefully you can see it on this screen, but this is what Figma Slides looked like in 2023 when I first joined. We had this infinite ocean of gray placeholders. You could put slides wherever you wanted to. I don't think a single person was able to finish a slide deck using this system. So it was in a tough spot. We knew that this was not the move, having this infinite ocean of placeholders where you could put slides wherever you wanted to. But we didn't know what the right move was. We had a couple different options. We were like, oh, maybe we get rid of the placeholders, but we let people put slides anywhere they want, and the groups of slides become sort of those mini presentations. Or we only put slides in one single spot. So we were really not sure which direction to go. I said it, direction. And that's what prototypes are really helpful for. This over here is before we had prototypes. We just had a lot of rectangles. And we were staring at these rectangles for a really long time, just like through a pane of glass. We didn't know which ones to choose. And that's where prototyping came in. One of my very first projects was working on this prototype. For this one, we grouped slides together on the infinite canvas and only put the little gray placeholder boxes around these groups of slides. So we only saw them around these islands of slides. Slylands, you may say. So Me and a bunch of other folks, we got together and made this prototype in around a week or two, and we put it in front of actual users and saw, did they enjoy using this or not? And what do they think? It was really bad. No one liked this. It was really hard to use. No one knew why you could put slides wherever they wanted in the canvas. But what's cool is though the prototype itself was really bad and hard to use, it gave us direction. We were really confident to make the decision to only put slides in one spot. And we felt ready to commit to the single slide grid ice cream flavor. And that's what we have today. It's delicious. So let's talk more about the early days of slides when it comes to panning and zooming. So Google Slides, if you're editing a slide, everything is sort of centered. The slide is centered. You can't pan or zoom too far away from it, and it keeps you sort of focused on this one slide you're editing. Figma has an opposite situation. We have the infinite canvas. You can pan and zoom wherever you want. But we wanted to make sure we also had a view where you could focus on one slide and you can't pan and zoom too far away from it. This is what it looked like back in the day in 2023. We actually had no way to lock down your panning and zooming. If you zoomed out too far, or if you zoomed left or right a little bit too much, you just went back in the grid view. There was no way to really keep yourself on a slide. So I had a lot of ideas on how to make this better. I wrote some animations here, which were pretty cool. But again, no one could feel them or experience them. They were just looking at them behind a pane of glass. So, you know what's up? I prototyped. And I made 2 different prototypes of a couple different options I had. This first prototype, we basically, if you zoomed out too far, we just recentered your slide all the time. You can see here that the slide is being recentered as I zoom out. This other one did not recenter your slide as often, but it kept you sort of like, it gave you a little bit more flexibility to move around, a little more free space. Here's a little diagram just to explain this concept a little bit more. This prototype right here, this one, you didn't have very much room before we would recenter your viewport. And the other one over there, a lot more space for you to pan and zoom around. So we got some designers together. We jammed on these for 30 minutes. We wanted to see which one people preferred. Any guesses? Neither. They were both bad. But we didn't really have that much time to think about it, so we just got rid of that one and we shipped that. But this is an actual frustrated designer that sent this video in our feedback channel that was just frustrated. He was never able to center his slide. What was going on? However, because I spent the time to go through those 2 prototypes, I actually came up with a third idea. I thought about, what if we take your canvas scale, the amount that you're zoomed into the page, and we divide this spacing by that number, and therefore make it dynamic. Here's an animation. Shout out Figma Motion. Look at that. It moves. It depends on how zoomed in you are. And it worked. People liked it. And that is what we have today. We were able to commit to the flexible, dynamic Viewport padding ice cream. Let's go. You can use it today. So prototypes are really helpful in the early days of slides for really providing direction to our product and being confident about different decisions. But prototypes are useful for even more than that. Let's talk about April fun, because prototypes can also be used for inspiration. What does this mean? So let's say you're at Lush Gelato in North Beach, San Francisco with one of your friends, and they're not sure if they want to get ice cream or not. Like, they may say no to spending $5 on an ice cream flavor, but would they say no to, I don't know, just a sample of the fresh mint gelato? So let's talk about April fun at Figma. What is April fun? So April 1st, we have a Figma tradition for a week or so. We do a variety of fun projects. We've done custom cursors. We've done snake in the canvas. We've done washi tape. And the year is 2025. We're trying to figure out another sick project to do. This is our actual brainstorming Fig Jam. We were in this for like 30 or 40 minutes. And up here in the top right corner, you can probably see it, this is where we decided to merge two internal hackathon ideas together, Figmagachi and FigPets, into one. We called it FigPals, and we had a little guide, just follow your cursor around. And if you felt too distracted by it, you can leave your pal on the tool belt. So it was a good idea. The design, and oh yeah, one more. You could also customize your pal. And if you were in a file with other people, because Figma is multiplayer, you could see everyone else's pals. So the designers really liked this. The designers got together for an hour and just drew a bunch of different ideas. But the engineering side, again, I'm an engineer. The engineering side was a little bit more challenging. So it's March 10th. Again, this needs to be done April 1st. So we just straight up did not have like any engineers. We had 2 total people that were down, and one of them was out of office for 2 weeks. So things were looking a little dire. However, prototypes. I decided, let's just send it and make a prototype. I used my engineering graphic design skills to have high contrast colors and Comic Sans to make it easy to read. But this prototype, it showed that you could actually have pals that sync across 2 different accounts. It showed it was possible. And that started off so much more. Because soon after that, Marion over here, down here in the tool belt, he added a button to show and hide my Comic Sans modal. Peter then took this modal and added 4 different pals. Look at them go. Justin over here brought all the work together and put the pals in the tool belt for the very first time. And soon, through all these incremental changes and prototypes, we sort of built on top of each of them over and over again until we had a working demo that felt like actually so good. Just a quick disclaimer before this next part. This is an April Fun project. Do not prototype and make changes the weekend before you launch, unlike Tuesday. So anyways, it's the weekend before we launch, and I do some more prototyping. I made a walk prototype where they were alive in the tool belt. It was extremely distracting, and we did not ship this. I had one where it stretched and squeezed depending on how fast you moved your mouse. It was also really buggy and distracting, so we scrapped it. However, some of the prototypes felt extremely good. I was on a walk with my partner, and she mentioned, oh, what if you have the PAL face your cursor? So I just whipped it up super fast. Now the PAL faces the direction it's going, and people love that. It went so hard. People super enjoyed this prototype. And then here's one where you could right-click something to feed it to the PAL, and it actually deletes the node from your canvas. You can undo it, though. But people also really like this one. So we shipped those. We shipped a bunch of other awesome stuff. And in the end, we had 14 engineers and so many other people. I think it was up to 30 that all just on their own free time, while working on normal project work, they helped make small changes and add on to these prototypes we had to make FigPals a really sweet project. And in the end, we got 1.6 million FigPals that were made over the course of 2 weeks. So it was pretty awesome. And though we did turn them off, they live on in community. So we just launched this. Check it out. FigPals. Nice. So let's talk about, it's behind me right now, but this says modern Figma Slides, and there's a big foreshadow up here with LLMs. So let's talk about that. Before 2026, my workflow was coding with my 2 hands, and this is me in front of a whiteboard working on a hard problem. And now, these days, my workflow looks like this. This is a photo of me in a Waymo on the interstate orchestrating 4 parallel agents. So the times have changed. What I've noticed through working a lot with these models is that LLMs can speed up your prototyping. They can also let more people prototype. But you know what they cannot do? What hasn't changed is that they cannot decide between the prototypes or experience them or feel them. So let's talk about this a little bit. how do we make Figma Slides accessible? We have a sweet little slide reordering carousel over here that works great with your mouse. You can do multi-selection, you can move them around. It works awesome. However, keyboard is a bit harder of a problem. You might think, oh, okay, you do command bracket and you either move it up or you move it down. You just move your selection backwards and forwards. Pretty easy, right? It would be easy if Figma Slides was not made up of both a 1D representation and a 2D grid representation that has to be constantly kept in sync. So, it's a little bit of a harder problem. I tackled this problem by drawing a bunch of rectangles to try to visualize what we should do. And then I drew even more rectangles. And you could probably tell the pattern here. I was just looking at these rectangles without any way to feel or experience them. Does anyone want to guess what I did next? I wrote a text spec and I got stakeholder alignment. No, I prototyped, of course, and I prototyped so hard that I made 4 of them. What's cool is that the models, they helped me make these prototypes really fast. These were absolutely not production ready, but they were ready enough for me to send to my other human buddies. And we had a Fig Jam where we all went through each of these and tested them out. This one felt really bad. This one, it was okay. Like, people kind of liked it, but this one over here, people really liked. You can see, you might not be able to see, but people really like this one. And I'm going to try to explain why. It's a little bit hard because we understood why after feeling these prototypes. But this one felt the best because when we reordered your selection in the grid, we never changed the rows of the slides that were unselected. But my description probably doesn't really help you understand. You could try it out today with command and the brackets in Figma Slides. Let's go. We chose prototype number 2 flavor of ice cream. So the next big problem that we solved in Slides world was recently putting speaker notes in the grid. We've known about this for 2.5 years. We've known about speaker notes in the single slide view, right down here, that's where they are. But in our grid view, where you're zoomed out and you have that infinite canvas, where do you put the speaker notes? We kind of had this question open for a couple years or so. Where do we put them? But recently, we had a Slack thread. And our product manager, Connor over here, using our internal prototyping playground, he made one where based on which slide you had selected, it showed up down there at the bottom of your screen. But little did our PM Connor know that he set off a chain of inspiration. Because next, our designer Megan made this prototype with our internal playground where the speaker notes lived below the slides. And this thread got so popular that even our chief product officer himself, Yuki, made another prototype with an outline mode where the speaker notes are right next to the slide thumbnails. And of course, I got in on the fun too. And I made one where the speaker notes appeared right below the slide. And it's a little hard to see, but that background color changes. But what's cool is that the speaker notes work because we had a lot of discussion through these prototypes. We used prototypes as a way to try things out and discuss them, but truly what made this work were these long Slack threads of iterating through dozens and dozens of prototypes. But we got to this point. Shout out to other Noah over here. We got to ship it. And there was also a lot of engineering to go from prototype mode into actual production ready mode. So here are some bug bashes we had internally to make sure this thing was shippable. And here it is today. If you click that button in the top left corner, check that out. Speaker notes in the grid. Let's go. So, shout out to prototypes. They're pretty great, and they've really made Figma what it is. I just want to talk a little bit more about this thing that I foreshadowed, this with LLM star. This is what an LLM thinks ice cream tastes like. It's a bit like reviewing a movie from just the screenplay alone. Thank you. Thank you, model. So I went back to this old set of rectangles from the very early days of slides. You probably remember them. But this set of rectangles was actually part of a much bigger discussion. We had this big Fig Jam board that we spent multiple weeks on, having a bunch of discussions, going through a bunch of ideas. It was really complicated. I recently asked one of the models, hey, I gave it the Figma MCP, and I was like, what do you think we should do? And you know what it said? One-line version. It said this. But like, I couldn't really feel this. It's just like ice cream just behind a pane of glass. So then I said, okay, bud, use the Figma MCP to show me what you're talking about. And it came up with this, which it's an interesting concept. They've got like a slide graveyard in there. They've got the single grid. It's not the solution, but I think it's more part of the puzzle. It's not worth discounting, but it's not worth discounting, but it's also not worth being the solution. It's just part of the discussion, because what really makes things work at Figma and with all the other projects I've worked on has been the discussion between all the other people working on it. So I want you guys to prototype. I am an engineer, so a lot of my workflow involves working with code, but prototypes truly do not need to be code. If you use FigJam, you probably see this sticky note curl animation. Check this out. Ready? Look at that. I'm gonna do it one more time because it's so sick. Let's go. But this animation started off as a bunch of rectangles. I was trying to figure out, is it possible to mask this animation appropriately? Is this doable? And this Figma file with a bunch of rectangles and masks showed that it was possible. I made a transit quiz that went semi-viral in San Francisco last year, where you had 17, oh, shout out. We had 17 questions that had people choose their favorite type of, choose via MBTI, which type of train they were, and they got results and could share them. But the 17 questions, I did not code the pages up immediately. It started as a Figma slide deck, shout out Figma Slides, and I had people click through the slides and pretend to take the test. And then I just kept on asking them questions like, hey, which part was your favorite? Which part was your least favorite? And I iterated on that like 4 or 5 times. This slide deck itself, also made in Figma Slides, shout out. This started as a bazillion different prototypes. It was like a bunch of outlines, bullet points, a bunch of skip slides. So what am I trying to say here? The design process, you know it's messy. Look at this arrow. It might be made out of ice cream. I don't know. Make prototypes, have fun, keep it messy. Thanks all.